The Marketing Mixtape, a space where we cut through the noise and focus on what matters in marketing.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Bruce. Let's transition into ABM and let's share with the audience, what we're doing in ABM, a little bit of our experience and what we're seeing in the market. So first of all, I'd love to hear a little bit about, give us kind of a high level introduction to ABM and why do you feel this approach is the future of, B2B customer acquisition?
Yeah, so right off the bat, I don't think ABM is the future of B2B customer acquisition. I think it's the present, like it's now. Like anyone that's not even taking an account-based approach to understanding who their ideal customers are, how they need to go after them, what that buy journey looks like, I think they're behind schedule. So it's the present. Um, and having said that, like it's still it's surprising to me how many marketing teams still look at that customer acquisition funnel of a traditional, drive awareness, create interest, convert. Most of the sales teams that I've worked with have already taken account of based approach to sales. Yet the disconnect is with the marketing team. That alignment between the sales and marketing working to acquire the same list of accounts doesn't exist. So sales know who they're going after, who their target accounts are. Yeah, they have their own siloed strategy, and then like marketing's over there doing their thing, building brand or whatever it is. So I feel like it's the now, and then the future I think really is around understanding the evolution of the buyer journey and it not being linear. It is very much network based. So it's understanding how an account-based approach. So an account-based approach kind of took the focus off leads and people moving through a funnel and inverted the funnel and looked at how accounts, enter the funnel, then we expand the audience, engage and convert. I think the ideal scenario is a combination. So it's an account-based approach, but still understanding within those accounts who those people are still needs to be user-centric or people-centric, to the point that you mentioned about content, understanding who those people are, where they are at in their buyer journey. With the whole content, floods of content available that we've just been talking about, AI, being so readily available. No one, very few people saying anything new anymore. 90% of the buyer journey happens before someone even talks to sales. So, unless being studies done, a typical buying committee or buying group within a B2B context consists of 6 to 10 people. They're all each doing their own research, bringing 4 to 5 pieces of content that they've gathered individually. So then, as a marketing team, how do we ensure that we have touch point? We've established touch points with each of those people, and that they have that information that they need to be able to fulfill their position in that buying decision. I think ABM is about aligning sales and marketing or anything else, and it's something anyone that's in the B2B space should be considering. And then it's not, it's moving away from moving the focus from funnels to understanding networks of influence more than traditional conversion funnels.
That's very interesting. What you said about expanding the network of an account versus looking at it as you might say as a standard funnel. I think that's a really, really good way of interpreting this shift in mindset and also shift in customer acquisition. And can you give me an idea of what an ABM roadmap would look like for, say, a small to medium business, maybe mid-market, let's say 100 to a $500 million business? What would that look like? What would an ABM roadmap look like, considering they have a marketing department, they have a sales department, they have a sales and marketing manager or individuals? And lastly, how does that connect with what you said about having silos, these kind of operating in a silos and saying, hey, here's a bunch of leads, and then kind of cleaning their hands, and sales having to kind of pick up the pieces, and vice versa when sales doesn't follow up, marketing leads in this kind of, sales problem, vice versa.
Yeah, so I think like at the very highest level, very most basic, kind of most basic framework for people that are just starting to dabble in ABM is an ideal approach is the team framework, and not just because the acronym itself kind of speaks to this idea of sales and marketing in the team working together, speaks to this idea of alignment that we just talked about. So The T in team stands for target. It's about understanding, again, those ideal target accounts based on similarities with the best customers that we've had in the more immediate past. So understanding not just our total addressable market. And again, I see a lot of people think about, talking about, we want to talk, we can sell to anyone within the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 list. And sure, that might be the total addressable market. They may narrow that down to specific industry, but then what's our total relevant market? How do we best help our best customers? And then, how can we find more of those? But based on our past success, we know that, we bring value to the table and they're a good fit for us. And then kind of the second part of target is understanding that buying group within our target accounts that we just talked about. Who's the decision maker, who's going to be our champion, who's our initiator, the buying. We need to be in front of all of those buying personas to achieve this kind of ecosystem of influence we talked about. Then E follows the T. E is engage. So marketing and sales are working together to build engagement strategies targeted towards those key target accounts. And that's where there's a shift, right, from kind of going super wide with our engagement and trying to fill the funnel, as opposed to building a specific, tailored, laser targeted approach to engaging with those named accounts. We know now who we're talking to. We've identified the buying group within those target accounts. We have a layer of information that enables us to personalize and tailor our messaging and our content in a way that just, filling a funnel, it doesn't give us. So A is for activate. So having a clear and documented approach to understanding when the handoff from marketing to sales happens. And not that there is a complete handoff, right? It's not like, hey, here you go, you take it from here. Marketing sales continues to work side by side. And even after the conversion with sales, and that's what RevOps is all about, right? Bringing marketing, sales, service, and support together. That even after the conversion happens, how does service, customer success play a part of that picture so that we can secure future business, upsell, cross-sell, secure ambassadors for our brand, referrals? Keep talking back to this network of influence, right? Ecosystem of influence. If we have ambassadors that are doing our marketing for us, best case scenario. And then M, so TEA, M is for measure. And this kind of fits in at the end of the acronym because it, rounds out the word team. But we need to understand like what needs to be in place from a tracking and measurement perspective before we roll anything out, so that we can understand, what we have achieved, what we have impacted once we, launch our target account list, we launch our engagement strategy, we launch our campaigns. We can have a snapshot of engagement, of awareness, when we're running a campaign. But what was our benchmark? Consider setting up a control group so we can understand, at a granular level, what the impact was. We need to consider that before we launch our pilot campaign.
Awesome. And what does the roadmap generally look like for a business to start adopting ADM? What does the time frame generally look like? Is it like a minimum 6-month, roadmap or 12-month roadmap, or is it like we can get set up in 3 months and then we can start reiterating and improve?
Yeah. So, the kind of easy response for me is going to be it depends, but it does depend. It depends mainly on the sales cycle, right? Typically, you want to run an ABM program for a full sales cycle before you decide whether it was an absolute flop or whether it's a success. Having said that, there are there's basics that you can get in place in a short period of time. Again, 30, 60, 90 days, similar to the sprints you're talking about when it comes to marketing, when it comes to content. We look at it, we use a similar approach when it comes to running a pilot ABM campaign. A lot of the setup, it's also going to depend on the maturity of the marketing team or sales and marketing team that you're dealing with, right? There's a lot of teams that have already built out a lot of personas, built a lot of pain point, job to be done matrices, messaging content. A lot of that is already built out. It's just about a question of understanding and then building an engagement campaign. If that's got to be done from scratch, then obviously your kind of your ramp period's going to be a lot longer as well.
Awesome, awesome. And you mentioned that also about breaking things down into might say measurable steps, or fractioning these implementations. And I think the same goes for content and a lot of different marketing initiatives, not just ABM. You kind of need to do an activity, do a customer acquisition strategy, and then have a certain amount of time to give it enough time to grow and to develop and show results or not. And then you can make a decision or a conclusion. So how does content, or might say search experiences, really align with ABM? Why is search important? And I talked also at the beginning why SEO plays a role in ABM, but how do we reverse engineer that? How do we say, well, ABM needs SEO or SEO needs ABM? How do we bring those two together?
Yep. So I think the first thing to say there is that, and there's typically a lot of confusion around ABM and what ABM actually is. So ABM isn't a tactic or a channel. ABM is a strategic approach to go to market. So ultimately, search, SEO, or other tactics or channels would be a part of an ABM strategy. So typically, it's just re-looking at SEO and search through an account-based lens, understanding how we're using those tactics or those strategies to target, to go after, to engage with our target account list. That's pretty much it.
And
Um,
SEO and paid and PR and all of these other activities really come under that ABM lens. Is that what you're saying?
exactly. It's just changing the focus. It's starting with a with a targeted approach of knowing who we're going after, as opposed to filling a funnel full of potentials and then seeing what filters through. We're starting with good fits. So that's why often I recommend moving away from a marketing qualified lead denomination for engaged leads, because we've already done the qualification of the lead before we put it in the funnel in the first place. So if anyone that's on our target account list is engaging with our content, that's immediately a signal. They're already qualified from the perspective of us having identified them as a good fit for us, because they align with ICP, because they're in the market for similar products, because they're hiring for related job roles. There's already a level of qualification that has happened. So in some sense, it removes that need for an initial qualification step. When they become engaged and warm, they're ready to hand off to sales.
So considering what we said previously in this episode about SEO and how search has aligned with how search aligns with ABM, what recommendations would you give to a Fortune 1000 or a mid-market organization that is currently creating content either for SEO or for their content marketing strategies that really aligns with ABM, and account-based marketing?
So content continues to be the backbone of any of these other strategies or distribution channels that we're considering, right? Because paid, SEO, PR, referral campaigns, social, all of those share one thing in common, and that is having kick-ass content that is going to bring value to the table. The difference is, we have said at any point in this conversation that we need to stop creating content. Quite the opposite. I think the bar has been raised as far as the quality that's expected, but the quality that's needed as well, right? Anyone today can go into ChatGPT, kick out a 1,000-word essay, and to be honest, it could be fairly good when you compare it to the stuff that was around, and that would take months to compile, even just a couple of years ago. So I think the bar has been raised when it comes to the value that we need to bring to make our voice heard. But it's the only way that we're going to be able to stand out is by bringing a unique perspective that no one else has considered, and that AI does not have access to, right? So content is a backbone of any other channel or tactic. But we need to understand it doesn't just generate traffic. It progresses the buyer journey. So understanding how that fits into what we call the map of informational needs, right? So who is our particular buyer for this particular solution or product or service? Where is that particular person for that particular product or service in the buyer journey? And then how does any individual piece of content contribute to that? And again, a lot of it can be about repurposing, right? That stuff that we use at the top of the funnel or even the middle of the funnel can be used, repurposed as part of a social engagement strategy that we use to create awareness and visibility at the top of the funnel kind of point in the buyer journey.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one of the things we said at the beginning of the episode, which resonates, is that you can't just look at keywords and content in a silo. And I think having this ABM approach, strategic approach to a go-to-market, as acquiring opportunity if it doesn't really align with the buyer journey, you don't have that level of granularity in your content, then you're just going to be one in a million. And there, as you said, there is oodles of content. The differentiator is the value, and the value is generally a combination of understanding who you're talking to and the investment in producing something that is worth somebody reading. The last question for today, Bruce, is how can businesses, organizations just simply take advantage of ABM if they've already got some SEO or some organic visibility going on?
Yep. So for me, it's search. So be that, paid search or organic search. Research is like the digital body language that sales needs to streamline the selling process, right? So steps can be skipped in the buyer journey, right? People that are gonna engage with our content that are very different levels of awareness and informed about products and service. So for me, search, you know, is used, like I said, as a digital body language to give us an idea of where they are, where they're at in that buyer journey. So we can then, accelerate the sales cycle based on that, on those signals that we're seeing. So essentially, I think harnessing those signals coming from search as either a trigger for moving, the activate step, activating the lead to sales. I think search can be used in a couple of ways. Either a trigger for accelerating that sales cycle by skipping unnecessary steps in the sales process, and also for potential inclusion into a target account list, right? So if an account or a person within the buying group is already on our radar and we're seeing search signals, understanding and creating context with those signals. And then the other kind of side of that is, okay, if they're not on our radar, is this qualification enough to bring them onto our radar? And we then move them through that sales process similarly as we would to a target account, an existing target account.
Awesome. Well, great. I think this is a great way to end the episode. So I think if businesses are interested in discussing, RevOps, ABM, search visibility, accelerating the customer acquisition journey, you could reach out and talk either with Bruce or with myself. We'd love to have a conversation. Bruce, are there any more comments or anything you want to mention before we wrap up today?
I don't think there is. So, you talk about ABM being the future. I think and I think, we both in agreement that it's the present. It should be the present. Where I do see the future being is how we use AI in a way that brings us value. Like I said, make it work for us, not ask for if. So I think there is, big potential for using AI to essentially dynamically assemble content based on who's consuming it and where they are in the buyer journey. So a lot of that like heavy lift or admin work that would have to do on the back end becomes streamlined via processes that we're able to automate, right? So we have one piece of content, and then on the back end that can really shift and morph and change based on who's consuming it, where they're in the buyer journey, and where they are at on our target account list.
Amazing.
Always
Thanks.
willing to talk all things SEO, content, ABM with anyone that's up for it. So DM us on LinkedIn and we keep the conversation going there, or always up for a coffee.
Always up for a coffee or a beer. Thanks, Bruce. It's great talking with you. It's great to have another episode of Marketing Mixtape, and it's so good that we're bringing more advanced insights, more specific to what we're doing with some of our customers and what we're doing in the market. So really excited for this next stream of content. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Don't forget to check out our website, yugomedia.co, that is .co, And also you can head over to our LinkedIn or our socials, which we'll link here in the description of the video or the episode. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Until next time, guys.